This Senate Bill 2157 comes to you from the Transportation Committee with a recommendation of a do not pass by unanimous consent. The issue before us happened to be particularly for an individual who had moved back to North Dakota and had some serious violations in another state. There is something that North Dakota participates in called the Driver's License Compact Agreement with most of the other states in the country. And what that compact does is they share information back and forth about driving violations and if someone had anything serious that they dealt with, and if they had lost their license in another state, that becomes evident in North Dakota too. The compact agreement also has some stipulations about how that can be rectified. This bill had the idea that perhaps we could rectify this situation in North Dakota by sidestepping where all the violations took place, which happened to be in that long loopy state on the very east side of the United States that dips down into that ocean down there. Well, this person had lived there for an extended period of time and had several violations, Mr. President. And when he lost his license there, moved to another state, and eventually ended up back in North Dakota, and is the owner of a business now in North Dakota, but he has to be driven everywhere by someone else because, Mr. President, he doesn't have a driver's license. When he went to the state of North Dakota to see if he could get some help with that issue, the DOT, of course, contacted the previous state where he had the problems and had lost his license, and they said he would have to come back to that long loopy state in the bottom east end of the United States and stay there for a period of time. Quite a long period of time, actually, Mr. President. The number 10 years was referenced, and if he did that, he could then apply, if he kept his nose clean and get his license back there, then he could be able to transfer that and get a license in North Dakota again. Well, the violations were pretty significant back when. We don't know what his history has been since, frankly, but in this particular case, Mr. President, the committee did not feel that they could step over this line and make the change with state law and accommodate this one person. Part of the reasoning being that if we did this for this person, we may have to do it for another person, and soon we might be known as, the state where you can go and get your license back just because they'll bend the rules for you. Now, we do feel as a committee that perhaps there is some wiggle room within the compact agreement between the states, and it isn't something that's simple. It probably would take some work by the state of North Dakota, DOT department, and the rest of the states in the compact to figure out a way to make this work. Perhaps there's some restitution that could be done, but we feel that's where it needs to be done, not in a bill in our Transportation Committee in North Dakota. And so we would hope for red votes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Cook.
Mr. President, I introduced this bill on behalf of a constituent of mine. And I want you just to all understand exactly what this gentleman is up against. The offenses, folks, was DUI. He moved to this other state in 1985. He attended college. He worked down there, got good grades in college. Unfortunately, by the year 2000, he had 4 DUIs. He's lost his license for the rest of his life in this state. If he had 4 DUIs in the state of North Dakota, he would be able to get a license back again. But because it happened in this other state, his license is gone for the rest of his life. Now, I have gone to bat for this guy. He's got a business in my community, a good business. He has to drive to do that business. He installs fireplaces. He has to go to homes and give a quote. He has to go to the home and to do the estimate. He has to go to the home to put in the fireplace. I have worked with this other state. I have talked to legislators in this other state to try to change their state laws. It isn't going to happen because nobody cares about one individual in North Dakota who's lost his license for the rest of his life, but apparently me. Now, it's nice to hear that there's wiggle room in this compact. I have been working on this since we adjourned sine die in 2013. I have yet to find the wiggle room. I would believe there is wiggle room, but we don't have any control over this compact. We have a compact that affects this gentleman's life, and that compact is written by people who aren't even elected, not us. Mr. President, I think a green light on this bill will keep it moving forward, and maybe if there is some wiggle room, this is the club that will allow us to find it. Please vote green.
Further discussion, Senator O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't remember what year it was, but when I served on Transportation Committee, we did this for our state people. I don't know why we're treating out-of-state people any different than what we do. I introduced the bill back then because a person had driven so many times DUI and other violations that he couldn't live long enough to get his license back. The bill was almost, if you look back in session law, is almost identical to this, that after 5 years of being clean, the commissioner shall issue a work permit. I don't see why we're treating out-of-state people any different than how we treat our own people.
Further discussion, Senator Rust.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, excuse me. I was one of the individuals who voted in favor of a do not pass. And I can only tell you why I did that. While I have great empathy for the individual who is trying to make a living and probably has turned his life around, I also realized that he had 4 DUIs. And personally, I couldn't have lived with myself if I'd have voted to given this person a license and that individual were to go out and get a 5th one and kill a family in the process. I would have had a hard time looking at myself in the mirror, even though I have great sympathy for this person and couldn't do anything else but to vote yes on a do not pass.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, the question is on the final passage of Senate Bill 2157. Would the Secretary please open the key? All senators record your vote. All senators have voted. Any senator wishing to change their vote? Secretary closed the key. Final tally on Senate Bill 2157 reveals 16 senators voting yea, 30 senators voting nay, 1 senator absent and not voting. The bill is lost.